Time for another budget challenge. It's been quite a few months since I did one of these, and in that time I've noticed food prices increasing on an almost daily basis. And I don't know if it's possible to repeat the success of previous £1 for one day videos anymore. So before we get started with rules and shopping and such, let's just take a look back at some of the prices of things I bought or considered buying in previous challenges and compare them to their present day prices. The previous prices were captured over a period of time, but I think we can treat them as a single point because for the entirety of that period, the prices of these sorts of items was pretty static, only having sharply risen comparatively recently. In fact, the stasis of those prices can be seen in the two shopping comparison videos that I did. So way back in that 97p per day mini-series, here are some of the prices shopping in Asda. Loose carrots 50p a kilo, loose onions 60p per kilo, 500 grams of pears for 59p, a pint of whole milk for 50p, cheapest ramen noodles 14p, tin of tomatoes 28p, tin of baked beans 22p, 6 medium eggs 79p, a kilo of long grain rice 45p, and a tin of chickpeas 40p. Then from the £1 one day videos, shopping in Tesco this time, a sliced white loaf. I didn't buy this, but we did get a shot of the price label, 40p. Or 2 part baked baguettes for 42p. A 400 gram white bloomer, which I got at a reduced price of 20p, but the full price, which is the only thing I'll be able to compare to today's prices, would have been 70p. Tins of sardines were available for 40p. The jar of salmon paste that I bought was 27p. Bananas were 84p per kilo. Loose onions were 75p per kilo. Loose carrots 58p per kilo. Tin of baked beans 22p again. This was a kind of supermarket price war item. A small tin of mushy peas 15p. Loose vine tomatoes were £1.93 per kilo. Loose mushrooms 2.75 per kilo. And then again from the £2 2 days mini series, again in Tesco. A kilo of plain flour was 45p, a kilo of bagged carrots 40p, 20 frozen sausages, 907 grams, were £1, 500 grams of cooking bacon, 75p, a kilo of rice, 45p, tin of baked beans, still 22p, a 200 gram tube of tomato puree was 27p, cheapest ramen was still 14p, 6 medium eggs for 89p, and bananas were 73p per kilo, cheaper than the previous video in the same store. Okay, that's a pretty good sample, I think. I looked up all the current prices for these items in the same stores as before, and here's what I found. Firstly, I couldn't get online prices for loose vegetables at Asda. It looks like you have to go there in person to buy veg by weight. I assume this has been done to streamline the order picking process for online shopping. So I skipped over those onions and carrots. Some items have increased in price quite dramatically. For example, that tin of mushy peas that was 15p in the previous challenge has more than doubled in price to 32 now. Same with the cheap ramen noodles, more than doubled in price in a period of about 18 months. 1 or 2 items were the same price or slightly cheaper. The cheapest white sliced loaf has gone down a penny in Tesco. And bananas are either cheaper or more expensive than before. I think the reality there is the prices of bananas must fluctuate quite a bit. Most things, though, are more expensive now. Cheapest baked beans have gone up by 23%, cooking bacon has gone up by 13%, tomato puree 67%, eggs are 57% more expensive in Tesco or 77% more in Asda, although that's because the before price was cheaper in Asda than Tesco. Milk is 90% more expensive, and so on. The general picture being one of significant increase in prices. Now, mathematicians and accountants may scream inwardly here because taking an average of percentages can be misleading in many cases and is generally frowned upon. But I think it's valid to look at it here because we're comparing a collection of comparable values. That is, the percentage increase for measured amounts of things. The average of these price rises across these items is 37%. Now, of course, wages haven't generally increased by 37% over a similar period, but this video series hasn't ever been trying to emulate any kind of real-world situation. Read the video description if you're confused or angry about that. The purpose of this exercise is to set a challenge that's difficult enough to be interesting, but not so difficult as to be impossible. I think the old standard of £1 for one day was always difficult because of economies of scale, but I think maybe it has now slipped into the realm of impossibility. So with all that waffled, here are the rules and parameters for this day's challenge. The budget is £1.37 for one day, from which I must create 3 different meals. The usual standard things are permitted: water from the tap, kitchen facilities and the fuel and energy to run them, shoes and the clothes I stand up in. Transport is permitted because I don't think it makes the video any more interesting to know that I walked 6 miles to a shop. To make it a bit harder, there won't be any wild food foraging in this one, even though there are a few things around that would work. Some spring herbs, some late winter mushrooms, for example, but those things are off the table this time. To bring it back toward being possible, there will be some small allowances from the kitchen ingredients. Salt, pepper, 1 dried herb, 1 spice and 1 sauce. Plus, a bit of a wild card, this box of leftover bones I've been saving in the freezer. Because foraging is out of bounds, reduced price items will be in, but there's to be no pro rata purchase of bulk ingredients, and then pricing only the portion used. So, let's go shopping, this time starting at Morrison's. So this is the haul, so-called. A stew pack, 99 pence. Tin of beans, 25 pence. And 3 mushrooms, 13 pence. £1.37 in total. That's my food for tomorrow, and I'm not looking forward to this actually, because I think this is going to be probably the most difficult challenge so far. I can't actually think of what we're going to do with this other than make 3 different soups. But maybe I'll have some inspiration overnight. I did rummage through the stew packs and find the one with the biggest onion in it, because the onion's probably the kind of flavour ingredient in all of that. So we've got, in there we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carrots, 7 carrots, a parsnip, a swede and an onion. Actually quite good value, that is. It's just, that took up 99 pence of the budget, so there really wasn't an awful lot left. I did almost pick up a pot of yoghurt. There was a pot of yoghurt reduced down to 18 pence. That would have been quite good value and actually quite a lot of nutrition in there, but I don't know how I would have made that fit into meals with something like this, for example. Anyway, that's what we've got. Tomorrow we've got to make that into 3 meals. So this is what I've got to work with today. So my cupboard ingredients plus salt and pepper are going to be chili flakes for the spice, sage for the herb, and mayonnaise for the sauce. Let's see what we can put together for breakfast. I do think this stew pack is actually quite good value. So in here we've got 1 large onion, I think 6 or 7 carrots, 2, 4, 6, 7 carrots, a parsnip. Oh, it's a bit mushy. Oh man. Okay, my parsnip is a bit squishy in places. I'm going to have to cut pieces off of that. I might have to use that first. And a swede. That is disappointing. I expected better quality than that, but we've got to work with what we got. Some bits of this parsnip are going to go straight into the compost. I'm just going to cut out the bad bits here, that end as well. That's scarred, but not bad. Right, okay, I'm going to give that a wash. What we got left is sound and usable. So for breakfast I'm going to make some kind of a rosti type of thing. I've got no potatoes, but I've made a kind of rosti thing with a swede before and it was pretty good. All of the trimmings from the swede I'm going to put in a saucepan with my bones. We'll make stock for some soup later. So I'll just peel that straight into there and I'm going to grate that up. So, big pile of grated swede. We've got nothing to bind this together, no flour or anything like that. So I'm going to have to, I think, microwave that a little bit just to soften it to make it stick together. For flavour, we're going to have a little bit of onion in there. Not much, because I've got to save most of this, I think, for later meals. So Just take a little slice off the side of that onion. Onion skins can go in the stock pot, and then I'm going to shred that very finely. And crush it a bit to break up all of the different layers, but also get a bit of the juice out. We do have an abundance of carrots, so I will grate one of these up. I'm not that impressed with the skins, so I think I will peel this one. And again, peelings can go into the stock pot. Bit of dried sage, some chili flakes, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of pepper. That lot I'm just going to put in the microwave just to soften it so I can squish it down into something resembling a rosti. Back from the microwave, yep, that has softened up a fair bit. I don't know how much, yeah, I can see some juice coming out of that, so I think what I'll do is I'll just let that cool and I'll squeeze the juice out into the stock pot. This is cooled down enough to handle now. I'm just going to see how much juice I can squeeze out of it, just to dry it out a bit. Probably about the best I can do. So I think we are going to have to drive off some moisture in the cooking. Just to give this some fat and bind it together, hopefully a little bit, we'll have a little squirt of mayonnaise in there. I'm just cooking it in these rings because I think it'll just fall apart otherwise. And then press down, and hopefully there's enough fat from that mayonnaise just to stop these from sticking and burning. Alright, I'm going to turn the heat down because I really don't want these to burn. While that's cooking, I'm going to slice up a mushroom and put that in the pan alongside. So that's one of my 3 little mushrooms, the largest one of my 3 little mushrooms. Just have a little bit of water on those to help them along. And I'm going to try and turn over one of these rosties and see how they're doing. Oh, not bad. Let's have a look and see what these baked beans are like. As I rather suspected, quite a lot of sauce. However, that is going to slightly work to my advantage later on because I do need the sauce for something else I've got planned. So there are beans in there. I would say the can is probably 2/3 full of beans. I'm going to take some of those out and we'll warm them in the pan when the rosties are nearly done. Mushrooms I've just been adding a bit more water to, just every time they dry out. I think the rosties are nearly done. They're too hot to touch on the top. So I'm just going to, in the same pan, just really for convenience and economy of washing up, just going to warm up some of these beans. Okay, let's try and put this together. Okay, well, tiny breakfast. Swede and carrot rosti with baked beans and poached mushrooms. Let's get that to the table and give it a taste. Well, as always, the camera wasn't rolling, but so the rosti on its own kind of really noticeably lacking potato, but with the sauce from the beans, the sweetness of the sauce from the beans makes it a bit more forgivable. And together with beans and mushrooms, I think the best I can say about this is it's not terrible. I did put a little bit more salt and pepper on at the table. Those chili flakes are quite potent actually. That was more than enough chili flakes for those 2 little rosties. Well, yeah, as I say, not terrible, not tremendously satisfying. Lunch is, I think, going to be a kind of spicy tomato and carrot soup. So, as I say, again, these carrots are not very special. That one I'll probably just wash, the others I'll peel. But the peelings, at least the nice looking bits of peelings, will go in the stock pot. The not so pleasant looking pieces of peelings will probably go in the compost. And of course, tops and tails of the carrots. The carrots I'm going to cut into small dice because there's no point cutting them any bigger. They're going to be cooked until they're soft enough to puree, so there's no point cutting them into big pieces. They'll cook quicker if they're small chunks. And I'm going to use about half of what's left of the onion, I think. So I think, yeah, maybe about that much of the onion. Still save that bit for dinner. All the trimmings in the stock pot. A little bit of water in a pan, a pinch of salt, and onions can go in there. As these onions boil down, you can see that the sugars that come out of them are starting to caramelise on the side of the pan. So I'll just try and dissolve those back in. And I think I'll probably simmer this until it just dries out and starts to caramelise a bit, if it will. Yeah, that's really as far as I dare take it. It's actually the sugars that are on the pan that are burning now, and I don't want to introduce a burnt caramel flavour in there. Those onions are cooked anyway. So I'll just take them off the heat for a second. And then into there, my carrots. I've got my tin of baked beans, and I'm going to strain in everything but the beans. So this is the tomato sauce from the beans is going into my soup. Don't want any beans in there. I think that'll do. Just enough water to cover everything. A little pinch of chili flakes, and then that's going to go back to the heat to simmer until those carrots are soft. Meanwhile, I would like something to garnish my soup, croutons or something. Don't have anything to make croutons out of, except maybe we can do something with parsnip. So what I'm going to do, I'll just peel off one big strip of parsnip like that. That'll go in the stock pot, and then I'm going to try and take some big flat slices, skin on, and I'm going to try and fry these until they're crisp. That could be interesting. To make that marginally more possible, just going to massage a bit of mayonnaise into them. Mayonnaise, obviously mostly oil, so hopefully that will just give them enough fat to fry in the pan. I think it's probably better to dress it onto them rather than try and put the mayonnaise in the pan, even though I have wasted a bit on the board here, but we'll see how we get on. Well, they are frying. I'll just put a tiny bit of salt on them. Well, I'm not sure these are going to go any more crisp without burning. I did put a tiny bit more mayo on them, just because they were starting to singe a little bit, but I think those are about as far as they can go, so those can come off now. These carrots, they're not completely squishy, but they're soft enough now that I can blend. I'm not going to cook them any more than that, we'll just destroy the nutrition. I think I will actually transfer that into the jug. This is the point where I can add a bit more water, just to bring that back to a more soupy consistency, but I do like a thick soup, so we won't take it too far. Thick carrot soup with charred parsnip tuile. And these parsnips, they are a little bit charred, but they kind of look worse than they are. They look like they're burnt to a frazzle, but actually, because parsnips have got so much sugar in them, what's actually happening here is caramel. Let's get that to the table, give it a taste. All right, now I did go light on seasoning, but I've got salt and pepper here anyway. Let's taste the soup on its own first. That's actually quite a nice soup. It does need a little bit more salt. And since I have it, and since I like it, a bit of pepper. Actually a really nice soup. It's really silky. And it was worth putting that tomato sauce from the beans in there. I can taste tomatoes. My parsnip twills have gone soggy in the soup, so that probably wasn't a good idea to put them on and then set up the camera. Oh, the flavour goes really nicely. Obviously carrot, parsnip related, two really earthy vegetables, but yeah, it goes really nice together. Now, a big hunk of bread to dunk in here would be nice, but there wasn't any bread in the budget. It's a nice bowl of soup, more of a starter than a main course. Never mind, there's always dinner. Yeah, not particularly filling or substantial. That would probably be okay as a light lunch in a normal day. I don't know if you can hear my stomach rumbling now. My stomach is starting to say, where's the bread, where's the meat? Anyway, this is just a day. I am carrying sufficient excess weight that this will not harm me at all. Let's crack on. Okay, well, dinner's going to be some kind of stew. So I think what we'll do is just chop up these vegetables, peel them. The rest of the peelings can go in the stock pot. I'll dice these and put them in the pan that I'm going to cook them in, and then I can make the stock first. Yeah, I might stop there actually. And so I've got this much swede left over. I'll wrap that and put it in the fridge. Parsnip, I'll just top and tail. Now there's not going to be any browning here. Although I could try and fry these off in mayonnaise. I don't really want to. So this is going to be quite an old-fashioned, you know, like those Iron Age cooking type of stews where it just goes straight in and gets simmered. Onion, again, the bottom bit and that outer skin is going to go into the pot. And carrots. I think we'll go for semicircles of carrot. We'll cook in about the same time as those little cubes of swede. We've also got these mushrooms. The little stalk piece can go in the stock pot. The rest of the mushroom can go in the stew pot. Okay, there's quite a lot there, but it's just vegetables. It's just vegetables. There's no barley or pasta or potatoes or anything to go in there. So anyway, the stock pot. I can now add these bones in. So I've got chicken bones. I've got, I think there's some lamb bones and some pork bones from pork chops as well. So there's quite a bit there. We'll top that off with water, just enough to cover it. I think this is going to be the thing that redeems the flavour, if anything. There might even be a tiny bit of meat to pick off of there. Yeah, there's a tiny bit of meat left on there, so I'm going to put that straight in the stew pot. So I will do the same with these. Now, there's not really very much on there. Tiny bit of chicken there. I will put the sage in with the stock pot, just so that the flavour infuses. Just enough water to cover. We'll bring that to the boil and give it a simmer for maybe 20 to 25 minutes, just to try and get the flavour out of it. Now we could boil this for a lot longer, and we get more flavour out of these bones, but I think we need to kind of cut our losses here and balance the cost of cooking against the amount of flavour and nutrition we're actually going to get out of this. The bones have all fallen apart, the vegetables are soft. I think that's probably the optimum break-off point to strain this stock. Like I say, we could cook that for another hour and it would improve, but is it worth it? Bones and stuff can go in the food waste. It'll get composted or digested down to make biogas. So we've got about a pint of stock there, and I can see there's some fat on top probably from those lamb bones. I'm going to keep that because there just isn't a lot of fat in the dishes today, so that's a bonus. So just enough of that stock to cover these vegetables. I could add more if I need to later. Some more sage. There was sage in the stock that we made, but I'll add a little bit more in there. Good pinch of salt. And now I'll cook these until the carrots and swede are just soft. I moved that to a slower burner because it was just boiling too fast on the other. Those vegetables are pretty much done now. So I'm actually just going to take out a little bit of that stock, just so that it's not too watery. Because what we've got to go in there now is the baked beans. Quite a lot of beans. And I'll just bring that back up to a simmer because obviously the beans have cooled it down a little bit. And then I think we're ready to serve. Alright, now I did a little taste for seasoning and it did need a bit more salt. So I've added a bit more salt and stirred that in as it was just coming back up to temperature. So there we go, and there's probably about the same amount again in the pot. Bean and vegetable stew. Now for this one I think I might just have a little sprinkle of chili flakes over the top. I didn't really want to put them in the stew because I felt like it, you know, that's the same flavours we've had everywhere else, but as an accent on the top it's a different experience. So, bean and vegetable stew. It's a nice stew. It does still need a bit more salt. Again, crying out for a piece of bread or some potatoes. That tomato sauce from the beans has just thickened up the stew a little bit. That's very nice. And somewhere in here there's a tiny bit of meat, isn't there? But I haven't noticed it yet. Might still be in the pan, I suppose. I'm glad I didn't put that last bit of swede in. I think that would have been too much. I think this is probably the nicest meal of the day, just because it's got everything in it. It's got a lot of the beans in it, and of course it's got that robust flavour from the stock, from the bonus bones. Well, I am going back for seconds. So yeah, that made 2 reasonably generous servings. So I'm just going to finish this off now, and I'll hand you back to Studio Shrimp for the wrap-up. So that was my attempt to make 3 meals on a budget of £1.37 in February of 2023. The short version of this summary is that was a bit disappointing. And the primary reason for that is the best things about today's 3 meals came from the added ingredients, not really the shopping. Anyway, let's just quickly recap and rate those meals. Breakfast, vegetable rosti with beans and poached mushrooms. I'm going to give this one 4 out of 10. It was not terrible, but neither was it wonderful. Lunch, spicy carrot and tomato soup with charred parsnips. This was actually a pretty nice, fresh-tasting, light and velvety soup. 5 out of 10, no higher than that because it left me feeling a bit hungry. Dinner, bean and vegetable stew. Definitely the best meal of the 3. 6 out of 10. Again, no more than that because whilst it was nice, it was like the other meals lacking some substance. Now, if I'd wanted to feel more full up, I could have bought that cheap loaf of bread and 3 or maybe 4 tins of beans and just eaten a lot of beans on toast all day. That would have worked, and if this was a real-life budget restriction, that would probably be a more sensible choice. But the objective of this exercise to make 3 different meals would not have been met. So, in conclusion, the outcomes this time have been a little bit disappointing, even with the adjusted budget, and in all honesty, I don't know what that means for the future of this series. Of all of the episodes, this is the one where the temptation to cheat and go out and grab a burger afterwards was the strongest. Curious to know what you think should happen from here on. Do I just increase the budget? Do I just give up on the series? Or maybe you think I'm not trying hard enough or not working smart enough? Should I switch to the dice-directed dining format, where the challenge is more aligned with culinary creativity than overcoming shortages of this or that? Let me know what you think I should do. Can't guarantee I'll do it, but I'm curious to know what you think. Anyway, that was what it's like to attempt the budget challenge here in February 2023. I hope this has been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.